Supervillains love a bit of the old murder, death, kill. I mean, who can blame them? It's kind of their thing. Well, yes, we can blame them because killing is terrible and it's usually us that has to be the ones that pave their paths with blood. But you still have to admit that after a certain point, these kill counts that they rack up become so astronomically high that they almost become impressive. And yes, I know that sounds terrible, but that's because it is. And yet people seem to love the likes of Galactus and Thanos despite their efforts to erase everything from history. So what we thought we'd do today is delve into the mountains of bones and viscera that these guys have created and try to answer which of these villains has racked up the biggest and most awe-inspiring body counts. With this in mind, bring your sick buckets and your raincoats as we're about to get violent and enter the splash zone. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 supervillains with sickeningly high kill counts. Also, on the subject of sickness, apologies if I sound ill, it's because I am. Number 10, Victor Szasz. Unlike the rest of the assorted cast of supervillains with sickeningly high kill counts, Victor Szasz has absolutely no special powers whatsoever. And yet, when you think about it, every time you see Szasz, you're confronted with the insane number of people that he's murdered, because he literally tallies his own skin every time he kills someone. And let's just say he's running out of space. Though this can vary greatly from artist to artist, Szasz's initial form, as drawn by his creator Norm Breyfogle, has the absolute most, marking Victor's max kill count in the thousands. And even if the versions with less marks are the more canon versions, it's shocking that the villain has got just hundreds of kills literally carved below his belt. Especially so if you consider the superpowered villains have killed far less people than him. This is exactly what works so well to make the character feel so incredibly creepy though, as you know he isn't focused on anything but adding more bodies to his fleshy tally count, with a special place reserved for Batman. Number 9, Deathstroke. When a villain goes by a name that has the word death in it, it's pretty much set in stone that he's not going to be a pacifist. That said, Deathstroke outdoes even his brethren of similar names, with a kill count that would put the likes of even Lord Deathman to shame. Now, Slade Wilson is routinely considered the world's most successful and most prolific assassin, having put more people into the ground than an undertaker burying death itself. This is doubly weird when you remember that Deathstroke has taken on a heroic role once or twice, meaning that he does actively have the urge to do good things. He just continually puts that aside in order to earn cash, which is pretty damn awful, however you look at it. Number 8, Cheshire. While this cat-themed assassin is perhaps not the first supervillain you'd expect to have a collection of murders as long as the Great Wall of China, it is undeniable that Cheshire well and truly deserves it. And how is this so? Well, because in Deathstroke the Terminator number 19, she proves herself to be a remorseless killer by using a stolen nuclear missile to completely destroy Kurak, solely to show how much of a threat she could be. She literally kills people just because she's having her image called into question. What an unbelievably sickening manner to gain some notoriety. Now, given that this country was often used as a fictional parallel to Iraq at the time, it stands to reason that it would have roughly the same population, meaning that Cheshire murdered around 38 million people in this one attack. Tack on an extra couple hundred or so from her years of contract killing, and it's clear that Cheshire is no pushover, although the fact that she got 90% of her kill count in one single move is more than a little unnerving. Number 7, Ares. Now, Ares has a slight advantage over everyone else when it comes to a kill count in this list because he's technically responsible for all of war, which means that every death that occurs in any war theoretically is attributed to him. Now, while this can make you sometimes feel sorry for the god, I mean, after all, it's not like he signed up to be the embodiment of war, he does appear to absolutely love death, to the point that he actually goes out of his way to be involved in violence. And the best example of this lies in the comic where Ares is basically turned into a regular human who has no obligation whatsoever to be involved in any kind of death. And you know what he does? He immediately begins to deal illegal high-tech weapons because, why not? This is also hugely unfair in the time where Ares is a completely neutral party who is simply chained and trapped in an alternate dimension by the other Greek gods because he's blamed for countless murders that he physically couldn't prevent even if he wanted to. Number 6, the Void. For anyone not aware of the arch-nemesis of the Sentry, there's a lot that needs explaining about the Void. For starters, he also exists inside the psyche of Robert Reynolds, meaning that the Sentry and the Void both exist inside the same person. Talk about living rent-free in someone's mind, right? Awkwardly, this means that they are, for all intents and purposes, the same being, with the Void existing as a dark mirror of the Sentry himself. Now this is crucial, as it means that every murder that the Void commits, the Sentry feels responsible for. Unfortunately, the Void is a murder machine, which makes for a painful situation when he does say something like murder 1 million people in Manhattan, and the Sentry gains even more of a complex because, he blames himself. Number 5. Cassandra Nova. It's surprising how often it's totally forgotten about that Cassandra Nova shamelessly murdered 16 million people after gaining control of a bunch of Sentinels and using them to wipe out the entirety of Genosha. While Cassandra does many other reprehensible things in her time, this is decidedly the worst, as she does it almost explicitly because she knew Xavier, her twin brother, cared deeply for the mutant-inhabited nation, and thus she destroyed it solely out of spite, which manages to make the whole thing even worse, as not only does Nova commit homicide on a monumental level, she does it entirely because she resents her brother, a sibling rivalry that has resulted in millions of people paying for her anger. Number 4. Dark Phoenix. Unfortunately for the hero Jean Grey, who was decidedly not in control when the Phoenix Force took her over, her body has been responsible for a fair amount of damage in terms of death while she was the Dark Phoenix. Because in an almost infamous moment of villainy, the Dark Phoenix destroys an entire planet, completely annihilating the alien race that inhabited it. Worse still, it's explicitly mentioned that these aliens are a peace-loving civilization, just to emphasize how entirely immoral this act is. While Jean is immensely guilty about what her powers did when she regains control of her body, it's not exactly something that she can take back, meaning that the situation is extra awful because it leaves her forced to be aware that she was briefly a supervillain with an insane kill count. Number 3. Vandal Savage. With a name like Vandal Savage, you're never really going to turn out to be a baker, are you? But old Vandal here has been cooking up a kill count that's enough to put you off your food. However, Vandal does have an almost unfair advantage over many other villains when it comes to their kill counts because he's been alive for 50,000 years and thus has had a little longer to amass a good couple murders. Not that Savage has been taking it slow at all, because he's been a mass murderer ever since he was a caveman and has continued to murder at a constant rate since then. In fact, Vandal has killed to the point where it's practically become part of a daily chore, like a particularly gruesome skincare routine. Ew. Strangely, the most sickening part about all of this huge kill count is that it almost seems boring to him. He kills simply because he knows no other way of life. It's kind of sad when you think about it, but not that you should have any sympathy with him because, he'll kill you as soon as look at you. Still, he's not a happy being. Number 2. God Emperor Doom. While Dr. Doom has killed a considerable amount of people, this pales in comparison to the amount that he took out as God Emperor Doom, the alias the villain would take on during and after the events of the Time Runs Out storyline, which would see Doom create the battle world by joining several mostly destroyed realities together and becoming the tyrannical ruler of what was left. Not only did this plan require Doom to kill thousands of universes' versions of Molecule Man, but those he didn't kill would later be used as a bomb in order to destroy the Beyonders threatening to destroy the universe. With a couple hundred universes destroyed under his belt, honestly, his full kill count is unimaginably high. And number 1, the Batman Who Laughs. The Batman Who Laughs is responsible for such a vast array of death that it's almost difficult to know where to start. In his origins alone, the insane version of Batman kills the Joker by accident, and then all of his sidekicks and the Justice League completely not by accident. Having set up a scenario where no one can stop him, the twisted former hero goes on to kill literally every single person on his planet aside from him, Robin, and Alfred, who he would then torture until they joined his villainous plots. Not satiated with the small achievement of destroying all life on Earth, the Batman Who Laughs would then go on to join the dark god Barbatos in trying to destroy the multiverse itself, with it strongly being implied that he was personally responsible for the destruction of several universes during this attempt. In short, we may not have a number high enough to state how many people the Batman Who Laughs has actually killed, which would be impressive if it weren't so utterly messed up.